Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday market snapshot for the Ottawa Real Estate Market on Monday, April 17th, 2023. My name is Annalee Rice, and I'm a realtor with Royal LePage Performance Realty here in Ottawa. Every week, I provide you with the numbers for Ottawa. I've got the active listings, the number of sales, the sales prices, and insight on what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. Citywide, the number of active listings at the end of this week rebounded to what we saw 2 weeks ago, pretty close at least. This increase this week was due to detached and townhomes. The number of condominiums listed right now is pretty flat. Sales this week remain steady. This is the third week in a row where sales haven't changed much at all. You do notice that the townhomes and condominiums had some fewer sales this week. And so I delved into the data and I found that the overall number stayed pretty constant because there were a lot of semi-detached homes that sold this week. There were 21 that sold this week compared to just 10 last week. This graph illustrates the overall rebound of the properties on the market. We can see the new listings increase. That's the green area. It brought it up to about 1,500. And then the total number of homes conditionally sold has been slowly increasing over the last 5 weeks. And so that orange wedge has been very slightly getting larger. The red wedge, which is the sold properties, has remained steady and over the last 3 weeks. Okay, so this week there were 408 properties added to the market this week listed, and that's a 25% jump over what we saw last week. Of those 408 properties, 83% or 338 of them were new to the market properties, while 17% or 70 properties were properties that were being relisted. This graph also illustrates the very steady sales over the last 3 weeks. It's not charted on here, but I did notice, and you'll see it in the data when the chart data, is that there were a larger number of properties conditionally sold this week. And so I do expect that we'll have a jump in the sold properties next week. With this, we can see that 24% of the properties this week that sold were sold without any conditions. That's slightly down from the last couple of weeks, and that's a good sign. It just means that even with the market slightly changing, that people are getting conditions which protects the buyers and the sellers. Of the properties that sold this week, only 16% were on the market for 7 days or less, and that is a drop from 24% what we saw last week. 64% of the homes that sold this week had been on the market for 30 days or less, which is a slight decrease than what we saw last week. Okay, let's zoom into the different areas of the city for some details. In the central urban region, so that's inside the Greenbelt, we saw increases to the active listings for all the property types. The number of sales reflected the citywide stats pretty consistently. In Canada and Stittsville, the market was pretty static. It didn't change a lot from week to week. There were a few extra listings and slightly fewer sales. And in Barrhaven and Riverside South, we see a drop in the active listings across property types, and we see an increase in the sales across all property types. And notably, there was townhomes jumped by over 100%. So there were a lot of townhome sales in Barrhaven and Riverside South this past week. And in Orleans, heading east, we see a continued drop in the number of active listings for detached homes in that area. The sales of detached homes and townhomes this week were a little bit lower than last week. And if you recall, last week I had mentioned that the number of townhomes that sold versus how many were on the market was unsustainable. And so I'm really happy to see that fewer townhomes sold this week, which brings the numbers a little bit more back into balance. Okay, so here are the detailed numbers for the detached homes across the city. The one thing that I wanted to point out, when I was on the last slide, I was talking about the number of detached homes in Orleans. And if you recall, about a month ago, I was saying that there were a lot of homes listed for sale, detached homes in Orleans, and there was lots of inventory. And then the sales picked up over the last 3 weeks or so. And if you look at the number of conditionally sold detached homes in Orleans, there's 22 right now. That's a huge number. And so that's mainly the reason why we're seeing the number of active listings in Orleans is dropping quite significantly over the last few weeks. Next, we have the residential townhomes. We can notice that the days on market for townhome sales in the suburbs continues to be quite low. We see the average breaking below 20 days for Barrhaven and Riverside South. And here are the numbers for the condominiums across the city. I am seeing that the cumulative days on market is really starting to come down for the condos that are selling. So you can see there's a real difference between the days on market for the ones that are actively listed and the ones selling. So if you're priced right, your condo can sell quite quickly. Okay, so if you find these updates informative, please make sure you don't miss the future releases. Find me on my YouTube channel at Your Ottawa Realtor and click subscribe. And please leave comments or get in touch and let me know what you'd like to know about the Ottawa market. I hope you have a great week despite the rain this week.